All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining us today for the webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're really excited today that we have with us a special guest, Patty Messer, Executive Director of the Grande Innovation Academy. And she's going to be sharing a lot of the work that she's done with Ask2Learn on her campus, sharing the outcomes from a teacher perspective and the school perspective. So really excited to have you with us. Thanks again, Patty, for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be sharing what our campus has learned from Ask2Learn, and hopefully everybody else will be excited to learn more.
Awesome. So let's talk about what we're going to do today. So first, we'll start by introducing ourselves in a little more detail, and then we'll tell you a bit more about Ask2Learn so you understand the platform and how it's being implemented at the Grande Innovation Academy. And then we'll tell you a bit more about the school itself and the mission and philosophy behind it. And what we'd like to do is walk you through what an individual teacher's journey looks like with Ask2Learn during the past semester, and then talk about what it looks like at the school level, documenting school-wide growth with the platform. Last, we'll wrap up with sharing some details about how you can bring Ask2Learn to your school and question and answer as well. As always, if you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to post those in the Q&A section, and we'll take some pauses throughout to address any questions that come up. So my name is David Birchfield. I'm one of the co-founders of Ask2Learn, and my background is in the learning sciences. I was a professor at Arizona State University for a number of years, and a lot of the research and work that I did during that time period informs what we're doing with teachers and students teaching and learning with Ask2Learn. Really excited to be here with you today. And again, let me introduce Patty Messer, who's the founder and executive director of the Grande Innovation Academy. And Patty, you want to say a couple words about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me today. I'm about 31 years into education, started out in gifted education, and I opened Grande Innovation Academy in 2016 with an innovative approach to education. And one component is our professional development, which is why we're here today talking about Ask2Learn. We're a K through 8 campus with approximately 800 students and 80 staff members. We've grown over the years. We started out with 80 kids, so we've grown and bringing some quality education into the Casa Grande, Arizona area.
Awesome. Great, Patty. Thanks. And we'll talk more about the Academy itself in just a few minutes. So what we really want to share with you today, again, is this focus on how Ask2Learn is driving growth for teachers and across schools. And what we've seen at Grande Innovation Academy is over 62% growth of open-ended questions that were asked during the fall 2020 semester. So a really exciting outcome. We're going to walk you through how that was possible and how we've collected data and share that with you during today's webinar. All right, before we do that, though, let's take a step back and talk a bit about the Grande Innovation Academy itself and the work that's being done with Ask2Learn to implement there. So one of the things I want to talk about first is I know, Patty, that you guys really have a great culture of professional development and innovation. And can you tell us a bit about some of the ongoing programs that you have and how the school is structured around supporting teacher development?
Absolutely. So we support our teachers with 2 weeks of professional development in the summer before students walk through the front doors. We tailor that professional development to the needs of our teachers. Whether they are returning teachers or new teachers to us or new to the teaching overall, we basically have 3 tiers of professional development that we take teachers through. We have a very rigorous mentor program where we have academic coaches and then classroom teachers that serve as mentors. So they support those teachers. And then after those 2 weeks and students walk through the doors, then we are a 4-day week. So we have students Monday through Thursday, Friday being that teacher prep day / professional development. So pretty much what happens during those 2 weeks prior to school starting is continued on those Fridays as needed and based on the needs of the teachers. And we just plan that obviously throughout the year, depending on what the teacher's needs are.
That's great. That's great. It's a real commitment to teachers, and that's exciting to hear about. And I know in the past you guys have used some tools to help support teachers to allow them to reflect on their practice. Can you talk about some of those tools and maybe some of the challenges that you faced before bringing Ask2Learn to the campus?
Sure. So a common practice is videotaping. So we have definitely done that. We've set up the video camera in a classroom that teacher teaches that lesson. Usually after that lesson, they're instructed to watch the video, make some notes. We've had some kind of worksheets to give them, to kind of give them some thinking points and reflection pieces as they watch the video. The research has shown that it takes a minimum of 3 times to watch that video before you actually get to the meat of what went well or what didn't go so well. And if you're talking a 45 to an hour lesson, then that's an extra 3 hours of watching. And then sometimes the academic coach will sit with the teacher, either the first time through watching it or maybe that third time through, and providing some feedback as well. And we just discovered that it was obviously very time consuming. And more importantly, some teachers didn't take to it very well. The morale would go down. They were, there's grumbling. And that's the last thing we want. We want to be able to retain our teachers. We want them to be motivated and excited about their growth. We don't want them to feel like they have another 3 hours on top of everything that they do. And that's 3 hours for one video. So if you're having teachers do this a couple times a month, then that just quickly adds up. And we definitely wanted to steer away from that. But we also want our teachers to be reflective, because we also know that, just having an academic coach or an administrator sit there and provide that constructive feedback, whether it's written or verbal, doesn't always work either, because the teacher doesn't have that buy-in, or there might be a kind of a deflection of, well, that was that day, or that's that kid, that's why that happens. And we just needed to turn it around so it was much more of a reflective practice, because that's where the change is going to happen.
That's great. And so can you talk a little bit about what went into the decision to bring Ask2Learn to campus, and why Ask2Learn? What were you hoping to get from it?
Well, I was hoping to get more buy-in from teachers, because again, that videotaping process is lengthy and time consuming and not always highly effective, because again, the research shows that teachers watch that video that first or second time and they're focused on things that don't matter, like their outfit or their hair that day. And then it takes, like I said, that third or fourth time before they really dive into the meat of what went well or didn't go well. So I was looking for something that would save time, but be much more effective.
Great. Thanks for that context. That really helps. And so what I'd like to do is let's take a quick walk through Ask2Learn. So if people aren't familiar with it, that they have some sense of what the platform is like. So Ask2Learn is the teacher growth platform. And to use it, there are really 4 steps teachers go through. The first is that they use our mobile app to record their lesson. When they're ready to start teaching, let's say a math class, they're going to press record on the app, put the device in their pocket, and teach their lesson. When they're done, they press stop. That uploads it to our platform, where we conduct an automated analysis of the session itself. That turns into actionable data, and then we provide a report back to the educator that they can reflect upon. The other piece is that they can collect lessons over time and set growth goals. We'll talk more about that in a moment, but setting those goals, they can track their progress and ultimately achieve those goals throughout the course of a month, a semester, or a year. And what we see when that happens is that teacher growth drives student growth and positive outcomes across the school. So what we'd like to do now is take a walk through a particular teacher's journey. So Ms. Jones is not her name, but she is a 2nd grade teacher at the Grande Innovation Academy. And we can walk through what her experience was like during the fall semester. So the first phase of using Ask2Learn is to capture baseline data. What you see here are sessions that she recorded in the month of September 2020. And what you see plotted in the purple line is the percentage of questions that she was asking that are open-ended. So open-ended questions are really powerful. They challenge students to make inferences, and they really drive critical thinking. So they're things like, how would you categorize these? How could you compare these? What's similar or different between these that you can reflect upon? And what we see is during that baseline capture period, she had an average of 15.3% open-ended questions. Okay, so Ms. Jones said that she has a goal for what she wants to do to improve during this year. She said, I will improve my questioning skills by increasing my open-ended questions to 32% by March 1st, 2021. So she's articulating a goal for next semester, starting back in the fall. And what we see here is her data from the remainder of the fall semester. So this is October through the middle of November. What you see plotted in the purple line is her average of open-ended questions that are asked during those sessions. What you see in the green is her target of 32%. And in fact, really great to see, in early November, she actually achieves that target. So she exceeds 32% in November, maintains that for a period of time throughout the end of the semester. So really exciting to see her grow and achieve that goal well before she even had stated when she'd like to see it happen in March. So Patty, I'd love to get your feedback on the experience of teachers like Ms. Jones at the Grande Innovation Academy. What kind of feedback are you getting from teachers?
Well, I have to be honest, the lunchroom buzz has taken it up to a different notch, to a higher notch, because as the teachers are meeting, whether they're meeting formally in a PLC or they're just like in the lunchroom, I typically hear, oh, I asked this many open-ended questions. And at the Grande Innovation Academy, we focused on 3 question types this year for our first year rollout: open-ended, metacognitive, and theories and observations. So typically you'll hear teachers focused in on those. I asked, 15% open-ended questions. Several times I'll hear teachers talk about the goal, because teachers did write SMART goals based on Ask2Learn. And I feel like it was a game changer. It really led to a lot more critical thinking and collaboration that just took on a different level. We were always striving to have teachers more engaged in that collaboration, especially when you're talking about 4th grade and up. We departmentalize. So you get the 5th grade teachers there, and the ELA teacher wants to focus on ELA and the math on math, et cetera. But this really brought them together across their disciplines to just focus on those question types.
That's great. So you're talking a lot about kind of the collaboration that's happening between colleagues and teachers within departments and across departments. What about the impact on the coaching that you talked about earlier, and how it's changed kind of that coaching session format?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So the coaching, of course, that just Ask2Learn adds another component to what a coach can meet with a teacher about. And looking at, the teachers want to meet their SMART goals. So those coaches would look at that data, then have those sessions with that teacher and provide different ways for them, and we did tailor professional development then to questioning types, and gave them lots of different stems for their discipline that they were teaching. And that in itself was interesting, because we had math teachers discuss ways that they could ask questions, open-ended questions in their classroom. And social studies would say, well, that doesn't sound right. I don't think I can use that, but I can take this idea. And again, that collaboration just increased. And it was great to see each other helping one another, all the teachers helping one another, especially in that those non-self-contained classrooms where typically they do just stick with, the math department sticks together in the ELA, but they really came together across their disciplines to support one another.
That's great. That's awesome. And so what we'd like to do is kind of understand that. We've looked at Ms. Jones as an individual, and you've spoken about a lot of the kinds of ways that it's driven teachers like her to collaborate with colleagues. What we'd like to do now is take a look at how the platform is driving growth across the school, and how data like we saw with Ms. Jones as an individual can then roll up to get a view into the school or the district or the entire organization. So this is the data that we talked about at the beginning. Really exciting to see. Looking in the blue line here, what we see tracked is the overall percentage, the average percentage across all teachers at the Grande Innovation Academy. These are open-ended questions that they're asking. So again, these are questions that drive critical thinking and inquiry. They're great, powerful discussion questions. And what we see here is a 62.7% increase in the percentage of open-ended questions that teachers are asking from September to November. So really exciting to see that platform is having that kind of an impact. And the thing for us that we always look at is to try and understand, well, if we see that much of an increase in one area of questioning, what else is happening? How is it impacting the other types of questioning techniques that teachers are using in their classroom? So we looked at what you see here. In the blue is actually a decrease in the number of classroom logistics questions that are asked. And we view this as positive. So these are questions where teachers are managing behavior, things like, why are you not raising your hand? Or in a virtual setting, can you mute or can you unmute? what we see is this is great. We see a decrease in the overall number of logistics questions, the time teachers are spending on those kinds of things in their classrooms. And similarly, we see an even greater decrease in the number of general affirmation and rhetorical questions that teachers are asking. So these are questions that are actually statements masquerading as questions. So things like, we know that we divide here, right? It's not really a question. So we'd like to see a decrease in that if possible. And in fact, we're seeing a 63% decrease between September and November. So it's really exciting to see that kind of behavior is changing in significant ways, not only for an individual teacher like Ms. Jones, but across the board for all teachers. And I think that speaks to the kind of collaborative things that you're seeing at the school, Patty.
Yes.
So what are some of the other kind of school-wide impacts that you're seeing? You've talked a bit about kind of the lunchroom buzz and those sorts of things. We'd like to better understand kind of how it's impacting students and those kinds of things as well.
Well, we definitely see more engagement with our students. Our teachers typically do a lot of cold calling, so hands aren't raised, but they're getting more engagement from some of those subpopulations such as SPED and ELL. And I would have to attribute that to just the higher level questioning and the deeper discussion that's happening to draw in those kids, whereas maybe that lower level they kind of tuned out. And when the discussion is deeper with some of the kids, then the ones that maybe aren't so engaged become more engaged. So we've definitely seen that. And then the teachers have commented about the questions that the kids are asking about the content. So although Ask2Learn is only recording what the teacher is saying, the teachers are reporting back that they're getting clarifying questions from the students that are at a much higher level. So that is awesome. The other takeaway is lesson planning. As teachers look at their dashboard and Ask2Learn and see, wow, I did a great job here. I asked all these open-ended questions. Then they are wanting to flag that lesson. So they have those questions, to use those questions in a future lesson, or at least to come back the following year when they know that they're going to be teaching that unit, and make sure that they have those questions ready to go. And they don't forget, all of the great questions they asked. So they're kind of looking at different lessons and, why did I do so great here, but not here? Maybe, and they're really analyzing, like maybe it was the content, maybe it was the where the lesson was within the unit. Was it the first time that unit was explained or opened, or was it, 3 weeks into the unit? So they're really looking at the question types that they're asking during a unit. But then the other thing they're looking at is time of day. Are they asking more questions in the morning because they're peppier and they've had their coffee? Or are they, slow to wake up and they're asking all kinds of questions in the afternoon and not in the morning? So they're looking at that data to kind of evaluate, because for our departmentalized classes, they see different classes in the morning versus the afternoon. So depending on that level, that ability level of that class, they're analyzing what level of questions they're asking for each group.
Oh, that's interesting. I think that's something we've heard of too. Sometimes teachers say, well, I don't know, that class that I have after lunch is always just not as good as the ones that I have before lunch. And
right.
That's great. You're saying that your teachers are actually looking. We didn't talk too much about it, but one of the things that Ask2Learn provides is the actual text of the questions that teachers can look at. And that way they can reflect on the exact questions that they asked and how they were posed. And you're saying they're actually using that to do their lesson planning moving forward and into next year.
Yes, we gave them during the professional development for questioning, we gave them some question stems from the different categories, and and it was pages of stuff of question stems. And so I said to them, this is overwhelming. Don't take this 3-page document and keep this, you're going to ask all these questions. That's impossible. So choose 3 to 4 higher level ones on this page, because we know as teachers, they're going to ask all of the lower level ones. That's just the nature of the beast. We're all going to do that. But to ensure that you get to those higher level ones, choose those 3 or 4 that you're going to ask during that lesson. And if you have to, put them on a sticky note, write them on the back of your hand, whatever works, to ensure that you're going to remember that you're going to ask them. And pretty soon it's going to become second nature. But that was just one tip we did. And several teachers took that. They would just look at that sheet, grab the 2 or 3, attach it to that lesson, and then go with it. And then, like I said, they just kind of built on their repertoire of question stems, starting small like that.
That's great. That's great. Really exciting to hear about how they're using it in those ways, even now, but into next year as well.
Yes.
So one thing that we'd like to do is that hearing about how this is working at the Grande Innovation Academy, people might be asking, what can they do to bring Ask2Learn to their own school? And so let's talk a little bit about that for a moment. We have developed the Ask2Learn starter program and encourage you to take advantage of it. We'll put a link in the chat where you can go to learn more about it, but you see the URL down at the bottom, ask2learn.ai/webinar. This is a no cost, no risk program that we've implemented. You can have up to 5 users, teachers who can record and upload their lessons and get the analysis. It includes 25 hours of analytics, so that can be 25 lessons, 30, 35 lessons at least. In addition, we'll provide a free analytics data review where we walk teachers through the data and the trends that we're seeing, much like you're seeing here. And that way you can really get a sense of the platform and how it can drive improvements and teacher growth. All right, with that, again, Patty, I really want to say thank you. Appreciate all of your insights, your perspectives on Ask2Learn, and thank you for sharing that with us today.
Oh, absolutely, no problem.
And we can take some questions if any folks have questions. I'm going to look over at the chat Q&A area. It looks like, so Patty, there's a question for you around how, if you have any recommendations about new schools that might be deploying Ask2Learn, things that you found to be successful or things that you might want to do differently in an initial rollout, that sort of thing.
One piece of advice I have is to start with those early adopters. Identify those teachers on your campus that are like gung-ho, I want to learn something new, I want to get better. And that was for us the spring of 2020, before the shutdown. We identified 8 teachers and they got their mics and we got their phones ready, and they were able to do some lessons, record some lessons before the shutdown, but they were super excited. And then when we came back to school last summer, we got the rest of our teachers minus the ones that are brand new to teaching. So that was one thing I wasn't going to put on a brand new teacher's plate. If we all remember teaching, it was your head was swimming that first year. So that was only a couple teachers for us. But we had those early adopters, and then we moved into the core of our staff in August. And I can tell you that the brand new teachers that did not start with Ask2Learn this year are excited because they've heard the buzz, and they're eager to jump on the bandwagon next year as well.
That's great. That's great. Very cool. Well, Patty, I think those are the questions we have. Again, thank you again for everything you've done to inform folks about the work that you're doing. Really exciting to hear about all the great work that's happening at Grande Innovation Academy itself and your leadership of the school. So thanks for being with us today, and everyone, thanks for joining the webinar, and we'll see you next time.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.